Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo están todos ustedes? Bienvenidos y bienvenidas a una nueva exposición en este séptimo congreso online de Reiki. La verdad que en este momento estoy súper feliz, más que feliz, hasta nervioso, porque es la primera vez que voy a poder entrevistar a uno de los grandes maestros de Reiki, principalmente por una gran investigación que ha realizado a lo largo de muchísimos años en diferentes partes del mundo. La verdad es que le debemos a Frans Stiene muchísimo acerca de la investigación en el Reiki, principalmente acerca del Reiki tradicional japonés. Él ha sido autor y coautor de muchísimos libros que han sido traducidos en diferentes idiomas, en holandés, en inglés, en alemán. Sí, él nace en Holanda, ha vivido también en Australia, en India, ha estado, por supuesto, en Japón. Probablemente lo conoces porque has leído uno de sus libros. Creo que es el único libro que se ha leído se ha traducido en español, que es la Enciclopedia de Reiki. Pues estamos aquí con Frank Steen, precisamente coautor de este libro, y la verdad que para nosotros es un gran honor que por primera vez esté participando aquí con nosotros. Franz, thank you so much for accepting our invitation to participate in this online congress.
Thank you so much for asking me. I'm really excited. I love the Spanish language. As a kid, I used to go to Spain since I was 14 because I've got family living there, but my Spanish is not so good.
Okay, well, so all the stage is for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, yes, I was going to talk about the way of Reiki and from a Japanese perspective. So when I first learned the system of Reiki in 1999, I learned a very modern way, and then I became interested in how was it practiced traditionally in Japan. And so in 2001, I went to Japan for the first time, met with Japanese Reiki teachers, went back in 2003, et cetera, et cetera. And I kept looking, I kept searching. I always felt there was something missing. And it doesn't mean that other branches are not good. We all have different ideas and different needs and different ways of practicing. And I think that's the beauty of all the different traditions and different lineages these days. I think it's really powerful in that way. Like, for example, some people like patatas bravas and some people don't like patatas bravas. So we all need to eat. So it's the same with all the different traditions of the system of Reiki. And so in 2012, I met a teacher, a Japanese priest, Takeda Ajari, and he started to really point me in the right direction with the practices and with the ideas of the system of Reiki from a very traditional Japanese approach. And that started to make really a lot of sense to me. So, for example, when we look at the system of Reiki these days, we see often it's hands-on healing. But for example, the precepts are behind me in Japanese. And when you look at the precepts, there's actually no mention of hands-on healing, which is quite interesting. And for me, the precepts are the core of the system of Reiki. I always say we cannot walk around in town, like wherever you live, and do hands-on healing on everybody. It's very difficult to do. We might get arrested. But we can walk around in a state of mind of the precepts. So when we walk around in a state of the mind of the precepts, no anger, no worry, being grateful, being true to your way and your being, and being compassionate to yourself and others. This does something tremendously to our mind, our body, and our energy. So, for example, in Reiki 3, Mikusui used this wonderful symbol and mantra. And if you translate it, it means great bright light. And so the great bright light, a description of that is the precepts. So the precepts are actually describing your true essence, your inner nature, what is bright, what is luminous, and what is ultimately compassionate. And if we can walk around like this in town, then we're emanating already light, we're emanating already love and compassion, and there's already possibility to heal other people, help other people. And for example, in Reiki 2, there is a meditation practice called Hatsureiho. And if you translate Hatsureiho, it means, first of all, it has different meanings, but one of the meaning is emanating more ray, emanating more spirit. So we can see this also with these kind of practices that Mikasui was pointing to something quite unique. And also, for example, in the precepts, we see the word today. And today is very important because it's in all we do today. It's a very normal phrase in Japan, specifically in Zen or Tendai Buddhism, where they use often today to emphasize that we need to integrate it in every action we do today. So Mikasui didn't put on the massage table or on your meditation pillow. He actually was pointing out that we have to integrate this state of mind, this state of being of this beautiful bright light in all we do today. And for me, that is really where the healing is, because not everybody can lay on a massage table. Not everybody has maybe the financial means or the time to do it. But when we interact with people on a daily basis, and we can be kind and compassionate to ourselves and other people, in fact, this has a huge ripple effect. And because of that, then slowly, slowly, maybe we can even see a more peaceful world. So in a broader concept, for me, really, Mikosu was pointing out to peace within yourself and then peace in a wider viewpoint. And sometimes we think that Reiki is something outside of us, but in Japanese tradition, the word Reiki traditionally meant kami or Buddha nature, so your essence. Kami often translated in Japan as God, but really your inner divine being. I think the word divine for kami is much better than God, because when we think about God, often for many people, we see it outside of ourselves, but being a divine. So the word Reiki traditionally, your own divine nature, your own Buddha nature. And again, when we look at these words, then the precepts describe the quality of the divine being. It describes the quality of Buddha nature. And when we look also at, for example, the symbols and mantras within Reiki 2 and Reiki 3, we see that Mikosu is pointing to exactly the same thing. So often we see the tools within the system of Reiki, hands-on healing, the symbols and mantras, the precepts, specific meditation practice, and Reiju or attunement initiation as all different. Like they're different practices, different techniques. But in fact, they're all trying to do the same thing. And what is it? Pointing out that your true nature is already here today. It's already bright also today. And that often through a busy daily life, we don't see it. So for example, if I look outside, I'm sitting next to a big window. There's lots of clouds and we don't see the sun. We don't see the brightness today. It's a bit cloudy. And I see a little bit the blue sky here and there. If the sky parts, then we might say it becomes sunnier. But in fact, the sun never changed, right? The sun is always bright, but it feels like it's changing. Often we don't see the sun in our daily life. We focus a lot on our anger, on our worry, on our frustration, or on attachment. And if I do like focus on that, that my body becomes tense, then also my energy becomes very tense. So Mikasui also points something out, very important, that the quality of our energy is related to the quality of our mind. Like also when we look at the precepts, it's all about a state of mind. And we all know that if you've been angry or worried the whole day, you feel very tired. you don't feel really happy, you don't feel playful, you don't feel joyful, you feel actually really exhausted. So the precepts also point out that if we do get angry and worried and frustrated all day, we're actually eating up our energy. But if we feel grateful and compassionate, that really maintains our energy. Therefore, healing can start to take place in our mind, body, and energy. And so the system of Reiki is actually pointing out, don't focus on the clouds. Don't focus on your anger. Don't focus on your worry. Don't focus on the frustration, but focus on the spaciousness, what is behind there. And what is that spaciousness? Is love, compassion, kindness, openness, this open state of mind. And we can see this also, for example, in meditation practices like Joshin Kokyoho. So Joshin Kokyoho is a meditation practice traditionally taught in Reiki 1. And if you translate this, it means pure mind through breathing in and out. And so Mikosui already said, when we practice Joshin Kokyoho, we realize that our essence is pure mind. And we can see this so much in kids. Like, for example, if you have little kids, they might have an argument, they might even slap each other, but the next moment they're friends, right? And we might have an argument and we never talk to each other again. So we know already these young kids, they have such much more open, spacious mind. And then we go to school, education, shit happens in life, and we become more and more like this. And then slowly, slowly, we need to remember again this open spaciousness. So again, when we look at Joshin Kokyoho, for example, I like this meditation. For me, it's one of my favorite practices. And it's so really when we do this deep breathe in, we breathe into the hara. And the hara in Japanese is taught in martial arts, flower arrangement, daily life, in all these. It's a very traditional Japanese concept. And if you look at it, it's below my belly button, and therefore it's the center of my body. When I feel more center, then I feel more stable. Even Mrs. Takata, the lady who brought the system of Reiki to the West, I think in 1935, she wrote in a diary that Reiki lies at the bottom of your stomach and that through meditation and concentration, it needs to come out from this space. Even the Usui Gakai, in some of their booklets, what they hand out, they say Reiki is something that emanates from your own body. And why? Because you are the universe. I always say the universe is not, of course, also there, but you are also the universe. You're 100% already the universe. And we cannot say, sometimes I think we practice like this, we cannot say, oh, now I'm doing lots of practice, lots of meditation, and now I'm 50% the universe. And now I do more, and now I'm 75% the universe. And then I forget to practice, and then I go back to 50 or 30%. It's impossible because we are ready every single day today, 100% the universe. So teachers like Mikosui was trying to point us out. Don't get distracted by your anger and worry and fear, but look at what you are right now. And so again, when we do Joshin Kokyo, we're breathing first into our body. And why is that? Because we're so in our head these days, even more so, I think, than in Mikosui's time, to all of these wonderful devices. We're constantly asking why, how, etc. And so bringing it first in our body, grounding, centering. And because also when we look at in English, I'm not sure how it's in Spanish, but in English we call it embodiment, right? It doesn't say enheadment or out of your body, but embodiment of spirituality. So right here in our body. In fact, when we look at the precepts, we also see one very particular sentence, and it's called Shinshin Kaisen. And Shinshin Kaisen means mind-body harmony. Normally, and often we also do this when we do hands-on healing, but particularly also in life, my mind-body harmony is not in harmony. My body is always here, right? My body is not in the past. My body is also not in the future. My body is right here. My breath is also not in the past or in the future. My breath is also right here. But my mind, however, is often in the past. You did this 10 years ago, last week, or we're projecting it to the future. And in fact, if we look correctly within the precepts, we can see this don't get distracted by the past and future also within the precepts. It's hidden, but it's very clearly if we look at it. So for example, if we look at do not anger, then what are we angry about? Something what happened 1 second ago, something what happened 10 days ago, something what happened 10 years ago. So this is don't get distracted by the past. We worry about the future, what's going to happen in 1 minute, what's going to happen in 10 years' time. So do not worry means don't get distracted by the future. Be right here, right now, today. And so the meditation practices help us to quieten our mind from not being distracted by the past and the future so that we can become more calm, that our mind and body are more in harmony, that my mind is here and my body is here, not that I do hands-on healing on myself or on someone else and I'm going, la, 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 what shall I do later for lunch? Like this. Then if my mind is distracted, my energy is also distracted, right? So we all know this. I I know I was in Spain earlier this year because I still have family living near Barcelona. And so if you hug someone, we all know you get a hug, and sometimes the hug feels a bit empty. You go like, where was this person who was hugging me, right? They were with the mind somewhere completely different. So if we really focus, then our energy is also really focused. So it's really important for hands-on healing, but also for our daily life. Then our daily life can become very rich. Our hands-on healing can become very rich. And what I also discovered when I went to Japan is that ultimately it takes a lot of practice. It's not just to receive the attunement or initiation or Reiki, whatever we call it, but really sitting on a meditation pillow and doing the practice. So for example, in the precepts, we also see a few different things. And it says chant with your mouth. So it means that we have to chant the precepts. And put your hands in gasho in the morning and evening. Now, sometimes people have taken this a little bit too literally. And it's okay, we just do it 3 times in the morning and 3 times in the evening. But then there's also a sentence, keep this in mind. Right? So we have to keep the precepts in our mind all day long. And we cannot keep our hands in kasho all day long. We have to drive a car, we have to make coffee, we have to do lots of things. Try it like this. Getting out of bed is already tricky. So therefore, this is only temporarily, right? And gasho actually means non-duality. Your traditionally gasho is joining your left with your right. And therefore, the core of gasho means in a non-dual space. And when we can maintain this non-dual space is ultimately bright light, great bright light, what is linked to that symbol in Reiki 3. Non-dual space is Buddha nature, is Kami, just different words for the same thing. Like sometimes I'm called Frans, sometimes I'm called dad, sometimes I'm called a son, sometimes I'm called a brother. So different names for the same thing. We use this very normally. So don't get confused by all the different names. But in a way, we also know that 3 times chanting the precepts or saying the precepts is not enough, right? Because if it was like that, then I'm printing it out and I'm going today to Amsterdam and I give everybody a sheet of the precepts and it's okay, say it 3 times in the morning and 3 times in the evening. And now You have no more anger, no more worry, no more fear. We all know it doesn't work that way. So we need to actually do it much longer, maybe 20 minutes chanting the precepts. And then also, I'm not sure if you've ever been to Japan. I love going to Japan. There's a lot of chanting in Japan, like in the monasteries. But there's also a lot of chanting in shamanism, Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, old Christianity. And the reason is that when we do chanting, we take very deep breaths. So already helps us to ground ourselves in taking deep breaths. And also, the breath is a link between our body and our mind. Our body is very physical, mind very subtle, but the breath is in between. I can feel it, but I can't grasp it. So it's in between. So I thought maybe it will be fun. I'll give you an example of chanting the precepts. So, for example, we can say the precepts distracted, like this. Gyorake wa ikarona shinpai suna kansha shite gyo hakeme hito ni shinsetsu ni, like this. And then we say it 3 times and then we're happy because we're busy. But if I do it correctly with my body, my breath, and my mind, then it becomes something like this. Yodake ai karuna shinpai suna kansha shite gyo hakeme ito ni sensetsu ni. Yodake wa ikaruna shinpai suna kansha shite gyo hakeme ito ni sensetsu ni. Yodake wa ikaruna shinpai suna kansha shite gyo hakeme ito ni sensetsu ni. Then we feel something very different within ourselves. And this chanting then frees up our frozenness. Like normally we're frozen with anger and worry and fear. And sometimes when we start to practice the system of Reiki hands-on healing, we maybe feel our hands get a little bit warm. But the more we actually do these meditation practices like Joshin Kokiho, into the Hara, or this kind of chanting, then we start to feel this inner heat within ourselves, right? And if we look at the word Reiki, in the word Rei, we see actually rain, right? And we all know that when it hails, it damages everything, right? So we are kind of made up of 70% of water. Most of the time, we like ice cubes, like we're very frozen. We get angry and upset very quickly. And then if I'm an ice cube and you're an ice cube, now there's lots of problem. But if we can melt this, then how do we melt ice cubes? We need heat. So the heat ultimately is the heat of compassion, but also the heat of practice. Doing the deep breathing into your belly, the inner fire in your belly. A lot of ancient traditions talk about it in Taoism, Buddhism, in Japan, all of this. Even in shamanism, you see a lot of fire practices, but ultimately it's the inner fire. So that inner fire melts these ice cubes. If one person is already melted, then already less problem. If two people are melted, no problem at all. So then we can see this rain in the word Reiki. And it's not wet rain. Ultimately, it's the universal rain. And that universal rain is falling 24 hours a day. Because if I ask you to touch the universe, then we don't have to do anything, right? We don't have to go like this. I don't have to go like this because we're already touching the universe 24 hours a day. So the word Reiki with that rain falling, and in the word ki, we actually see the kanji of rice and the kanji of steam. And that is because we cannot eat rice raw, right? And traditionally, rice was the nutrition. So qi is your inner nutrition. So what means is to make steam out of rice, we need to cook it. So if this is a bowl of rice, I need to put the fire underneath. So in the kanji of qi, also hidden is the word fire. And we need to put it underneath. Most of the time, we have the fire in our head. Have you ever been worried or angry? We get a super red head, like this. So Mikusui and many traditions, they bring that fire below your belly, like, and then melt through this inner warmth, this inner heat, through the chanting, to the deep meditation and breathing practices, so that we can become more melted. But the interesting quality is about water. If I have some water here. It's wet. The quality of water is wet. I cannot add more wetness to the water. I can also not distract wetness from the water, but I can freeze it. So I think this is a really great metaphor, because when we tap into our inner light, then we realize I cannot add more light to my inner light. I can also not distract light from it. Just like the sun, this is why in the Reiki 3 symbol and mantra, we see the sun and the moon. We cannot distract more light from the sun. We can also not add more light to the sun. It looks like that when the clouds come or when it's night. We say the sun is not there, but of course, no one switched off the sun. So Mikusui says, today, you're already the sun. You already this light. You already have this inner happiness. You already are a divine being right now. We don't notice it because we focus mostly on the clouds of worry, the clouds of fear, like this. And therefore, when we do hands-on healing, meditation practices, symbols and mantras, the precepts, and Reiju, we slowly start to rediscover our inner luminosity. And here's something else. Often when I do hands-on healing on myself, then we say, oh, I'm giving myself Reiki, right? But from another layer, I'm not only giving myself Reiki, I'm also the receiver. So in a way, I'm giving and receiving. So here we can see that the subtle layer of hands-on healing on ourselves is the same as gasho, non-duality. We're joining left and right together. I'm the receiver and the giver. So also the act of already hands-on healing on myself, hopefully slowly, we start to rediscover this non-dual luminosity. And by doing this, then I need to be kind to Rishi, because else I'm not kind to myself. And then I need to be kind to myself. I'm not kind to Rishi. So this is really also, again, pointed out in the precept, show compassion to yourself and others, is this non-dual state of mind. And therefore, when we look at the more inner teachings of Mikusui, we see that is hands-on healing is just a tip of the iceberg. But the most important thing is leading a life of compassion and kindness, of embodiment of the precepts. And that for me is a really important element, particularly these days. As we all know, the world is a little bit crazy these days. So I think it's very important that we see that the system of Reiki is not just hands-on healing. That's a very, very small part, but actually a state of mind, as Mikusui pointed out, and a state of mind of this open, spacious state of mind. And if we look at traditionally the wording of the system of Reiki, we see Shodan, Reiki 1, means beginner's teachings. Here we start to begin to discover slowly that in essence, our inner being is this great bright light. Then we go to Okuden. Okuden means inner or hidden teaching. So it already points out what is hidden inside of you, right? So traditionally, the symbols and mantras were used for inner teachings. Now we use them very externally. But if you use symbols and mantras externally, it becomes very difficult to find what is hidden inside of you. So what is hidden inside of you is this, again, this great bright light, love and compassion and kindness. And then Reiki 3 is the mystery teachings. We go even deeper than the inner teachings. We go now to the mystery of who you are and how you relate to the universe. So in fact, actually, it doesn't even say master teachings or teacher teachings or how to become a master. It actually rediscover the mystery of your essence, of who you truly are in the world. And in Japan, actually, I have it here. They often use this, some of these teachers show this beautiful bright sphere. And so this is our true essence. This is Reiki. This is Buddha nature or great bright light, how you, and no matter what I put on this, if it's kindness or shit, this never change. This is exactly the same, right? So it's realizing that we are ready whole. We are ready. So the word healing traditionally comes from the English word meaning whole. And we realize that no matter what happens, I'm already whole. My essence is already pure. Okay? Joshin Kokuyo, pure mind. My essence is right today already pure. No matter if I have an illness, I feel depressed, and learning how to focus on that. Maybe before I finish, I have one. I like also this in the precepts also. It says, do not anger or do not worry. And I teach this in my classes. I say, okay, if I plant an apple seed, what do I get? And everybody goes, an apple. I say, good. And if I plant a banana seed, what do we get? We get a banana. Perfect. So if we plant an apple seed, we don't get a banana. Okay, this is good. So wait. And I said, what if you plant anger? Then we get angry all the time. The more we water it, that anger will only grow. If we plant worry, then that worry will only grow. So if I'm worried today, don't expect later in the week to be grateful or compassionate because you're planting the wrong thing. So can we say in our life that we're planting gratefulness, compassion, and kindness? And when we plant that, then that starts to really grow. And then that we can really water. And so we all know, again, when we're in this space of joyfulness, compassion, kindness, gratefulness, what happens to our energy? Very different than if we feel angry or worried. So even therefore for hands-on healing, if we can maintain this mind of spaciousness, interconnectedness, non-duality as much as possible, then something interesting happens. And I think also with hands-on healing, we often see it very basic. And that's okay in the beginning. In Reiki 1, that's okay. But for example, say I put my hand on the wall, then we say Frans is touching the wall. Or if I do hands-on healing on Rishi, then you say, oh, Frans is doing hands-on healing on Rishi. But this is not really the truth, because if I put my hand on the wall, I'm not only touching the wall, but the wall is also touching me. So as soon as I place my hand on Rishi, Rishi is also touching me. So here again, we can see this non-duality, but I need to understand it in my head, because then I realize, oh, I'm not only the giver of healing, I'm also the receiver, because at the same time, Rishi is also in my space and also touching me. So now again, we start to see that hands-on healing ultimately is about on other people, is also about this non-dual space. about that. I could talk for hours.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. Um, I think your teaching are so great in the international Reiki community, but we are waiting here in Latin America for more your books in Spanish. Do you have some projects for translate more your books in Spanish?
Yeah, I'm still looking for a Spanish publisher, or if you know or anybody out there knows a Spanish publisher who wants to translate it, yeah, send me an email because I would love to come and teach in Latin America. I like teaching, I like traveling, so it would be great actually to do more. And so I'm always open or invitation or let me know. Yeah, always exciting. I think also this is so important these days also that we can create community,
Yeah.
and for me, I think it's great what you're doing now, all these different teachers speaking, different ways of utilizing the system of Reiki, one not better than the other, just a different way, but that we can hold hands together and walk this path together so that actually we can create a world where we be kind and compassionate to each other. I think this is the most important element of no matter what spiritual practice we do, ultimately.
Yeah, totally, totally. Well, Franz, thank you so much. I really appreciate for your participation here in this Congress. Thank you so much for your teaching and for all your research. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. And yeah, see you soon.
See you soon. Muchísimas gracias a todos ustedes por vernos hasta aquí. Sigan disfrutando de este maravilloso séptimo Congreso Online de Reiki. Nos vemos en la próxima. Adiós.
Adiós. Ti amo.